Hi everyone and welcome to Tapping Around the World. I'm here today in the beautiful but somewhat cloudy Venice, and I have here with me today Dr. David Lake.
Hello.
And we're here at the workshop that is being held by David and Steve Wells about SET, PET and advanced methods. So I'm very happy to be here and thanks for joining me.
Pleasure.
So obviously we just assume that the people watching this understand a little bit about what EFT and tapping is. Can you give us a bit more of an understanding about the origins of the SET and then obviously moving into the PET?
Sure. SET stands for Simple Energy Techniques because tapping itself is very, very simple. And then people have added all kinds of things to the ordinary tapping on any kind of points and called it lots of different names. So although there are 4 or 5 original tapping techniques in the world, most of them are 3/4 tapping and then a little bit of clever ideas and ways to work with problems. SET in particular uses a quantity of tapping. So doing a lot of tapping is important, and we emphasize continual tapping. Tapping itself is a marvellous thing to learn for self-help as well as to add to any kind of therapy because it facilitates emotional processing. And if you learn tapping as a self-help technique, you can add it to any problem, however you experience the problem, and know that you're going to get a shift and that you're going to help that problem process, sometimes on lots of different levels.
Wonderful. And for yourself, how did you come into the tapping world?
I was told about the tapping over the phone, and my friend rang me from Perth, Steve Wells, and said, why don't you just try tapping on these points and I'll describe them to you. And I immediately felt this wonderful change in something. I felt a lot lighter and more relaxed. Not too long later, we were flying to America to a wonderful original conference with Gary Craig called the Ultimate Therapist Conference, February 1998. And then in that conference, Gary Craig worked with me on stage live to help me cure my lifelong public speaking phobia in 38 minutes. That had quite a big impression on me.
I imagine.
Oh yeah, because nothing else had worked over 40 years. And I thought, this is good. So both Steve and I started using it a lot in our private practice with all of our family, friends, and it's been an absolute godsend personally and professionally. All my 4 daughters have benefited from the tapping very, very much, including my number 1 daughter, Tanya, who was in the original Bali bombing and had 2 hours of tapping when she came home for her trauma of being blown up, and hasn't had a single psychological problem since.
Wow.
In fact, she's going to Bali next May to get married.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's progress.
So,
And so with the SET, it's obviously the simplified energy technique. So if we are looking at, I guess, how is it more simple?
we've simplified the technique by concentrating on just doing the tapping, typically as a continual technique with the finger points, where you go up and down the finger points like so, the thumb does the work, one or both hands. And incorporating that into your daily routine so that in little bits and pieces you can get up to an hour a day. Several minutes at the red lights, 10 minutes taking a walk, half an hour watching the news on TV, a little bit on the computer, a little bit on the phone, a little bit when you think about it. And if you do an hour of tapping every day for 2, 3, 4 weeks, you will notice the most dramatic changes in your physical feelings of well-being. And lots of trivial problems will no longer bother you. We've even had people who have got over lifelong phobias without even doing any specific work. But you can do specific work if you want to, of course.
And you can use the direct work to focus on something if it's in particular importance.
It's quite easy to use direct work, and we say that it's hard for people to be their own therapist and do all their own work. People have an idea these days about the world of tapping that you should be able to do it very, very quickly and that you should be able to solve all of your own personal problems by yourself. I just don't agree with that. Some problems take a long, long time, and most of our personal problems, we're not even aware of the root cause or locking belief or specific problem. We just know we don't feel well or balanced while we're having the problem. So continual tapping and SET, I think it's the best thing for self-help. But I've taught continual tapping to people having psychoanalysis. They go for their session and they tap the whole time with the permission of the therapist. And then they tap after, and they facilitate the emotional processing, and their general progress is really accelerating.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And with the provocative energy techniques, could you explain to us a little bit about the continuation of that?
Both Steve and I trained intensively in provocative therapy with Frank Farrelly over many years. And it's also a style, a way of being, a kind of therapeutic alignment, a communication style, and quite light-hearted, and the ultimate rapport-based therapy, and using lots of humour. We thought when we learned the tapping that now we would have to leave that behind, but we found a way to integrate it. And that's the beauty of tapping. You can integrate it with just about anything. It's hard to say in a few minutes what the provocative style really is, but it's a little bit like reverse psychology, where you're playing the devil's advocate while you're on the side of the angels, keeping a very powerful empathic connection, and really encouraging the person in their madness until they wake up and resist that in a helpful and healthy way. So it's actually quite effective.
And earlier in the session today, you mentioned the word provoke is or Steve might mention it, to draw out. And
Provocare, to
yes,
call out,
to
yes.
Call out. And so what are we calling out when we're looking at that? Is it the emotions, or?
In provocative style, you're calling out many things. You're calling out the person's problem, what the Russians call the sick point, where the hot part of the problem is. But you're also calling out their resources, their inner strength. Frank Farrelly says the fragility of patients has been vastly overestimated. So they can take a little bit of the rough and tumble. We give the problem a lot of treatment, but we're very respectful of the person. So we call out their inner strength, we call out their resourcefulness, we call out their resilience. And this all happens when you validate the dark side, which is very paradoxical. It doesn't seem like that would help at all, but it's a marvellous thing. Carl Jung said that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that's what we try and do.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is.
And obviously you've come from, so you're a doctor, and how have you found that the energy psychology has built on, or has been contributed to by the regular psychology in your past learnings?
Well, this is a new paradigm, and very unfortunately, it can't have enough research behind it to gain the confidence of evidence-based medicine. It takes a long time to build up that kind of evidence. Steve Wells actually will say more about this. He's done the first very important scientific trial of EFT, so he will be able to explain more. But the open-minded psychologists and therapists are interested in this. The results are so compelling, you can't not be interested in it. But it isn't scientific just yet. So very unfortunately, it can attract the discontent and rage of people who distrust alternate natural medicines. The whole concept of energy is very hard to distinctly prove. And when there's a lack of research, people are like, we don't want to know. But that's true of all advances, all through history.
Absolutely.
It's only the results that are keeping this afloat.
And obviously we've had great results, we wouldn't be doing it. So
Exactly right. I've been treating anxiety and fear-based problems, and particularly post-traumatic stress for 30 years. I've never found anything to compare with the results from doing the tapping. In fact, I think it's a treatment of choice for PTSD. It's just extraordinary. A psychological well person who has a major trauma, like a severe car accident or an assault or some kind of setback in life, typically with 1 or 2 highly focused sessions of tapping can cure any kind of traumatic reaction. And I'm using the word cure, not relieve, not alleviate, not improve, cure. That's the way I look at it.
And when you say cure, is that about removing the emotional charge associated with the experience?
Exactly. The experience stays the same mentally, intellectually. You still have the memory, imagination, recollection, but it's a neutral experience if the treatment is done right. I don't know exactly how that occurs, but it does. It occurs very consistently.
Excellent. And obviously being Australian, you've got a pretty good sense of humour there. I've seen a fair bit of it today. And why is laughter and the humour and the comedy within I guess your sessions, so why do you find it to be so effective?
Using humour in the right way, in the service of the session and the patient or client, is very healing, and having a light-hearted view of life's problems is a great tonic, because people are very serious about the wrong things, like sex, for example. Someone asked Woody Allen, is sex dirty? He said, yes, if it's done correctly. So we like to have the ironic, paradoxical, light-hearted, humorous approach. It really helps with dealing with difficult stuff.
So laughter's one of the best medicines?
It is the best medicine.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it, and I will make sure that we're getting this back to everyone back home so they can learn more.
Very good.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Anna here from Tapping Around the World in Venice, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.